Cool. Oh, if it was just gonna be you, I would have just done it yesterday anyways. All right, but this one will hopefully be pretty quick. So it won't be anything too difficult. So let's just start. We're gonna make a new part. Let me know when you're ready with making the part.
All right.
Okay, and we're just gonna start a sketch. Top plane. Are you ready to start a sketch?
The part is still loading,
Okay,
so
no worries. We're gonna make,
I
so I guess just to give you an idea we're gonna make two super simple parts. And the main goal though is to do assemblies. So once we make those two parts, that'll hopefully be pretty quick. Uh,
okay.
and then from there, we're gonna open up an assembly, put the parts in there, and I'm gonna show you different ways we can mate them. Mating
Mm.
is basically in SolidWorks how you can attach different parts together in different ways. Um,
Uh,
it's kind of like the relations we were doing in the sketches before, but
uh,
we're doing it between parts now instead of like lines and points.
okay.
And just so you know, one of my roommates is moving in today, so if there's a bit of noise in the background, sorry about that in advance.
Okay, that's fine.
Cool.
Are there any specific dimensions right now?
So right now we're just gonna make it. I'm thinking we could just do right now a 2x2 square. Um,
Hmm,
I'm gonna use relations to make it like an even square, but you can instead just dimension the sides, whatever you want to do. And we're
okay.
gonna center the circle. The way I'm gonna center the circle, I'm gonna do a diagonal line like this, going from the two corner points. I'm
Mm-hmm.
Get construction, and then I'm gonna say that the center point of the circle is the midpoint of the line using relations.
Okay.
Then I'll make the circle 1 inch in diameter. That was pretty quick. So let me know when you have that all done. And
Yeah.
if you have any questions, just let me know. How's everything going? Stuck on anything or you're still going well?
Still going well.
Cool.
It's just, everything takes forever to load.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, SolidWorks is gonna be pretty tough to run sometimes. As long as the actual process of making the part's not too hard for you, it should go pretty quick. 'Cause I
Oh,
know
yeah. What's the dimension or the diameter of the circle?
I set it to be 1 inch.
1 inch?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, 2x2 square with a 1 inch hole in the center. How's the sketch going?
Just need to center the circle now.
Cool. Yeah, let me know if you need any help with that. That's probably the only tricky part about this, but hopefully it should go smoothly.
So how would I, oh, it is on the midpoint, never mind.
Yep. Yeah, and you can
Okay.
make a relation where you just click the point in the circle and the line, and you select the midpoint relation. So
Okay.
that's another good way of doing it.
Yeah, it's good now.
Good. Awesome. All right, so we're just gonna extrude that and we're gonna make it, I'm just gonna put in 3 inches. All right. And once you extrude it, just save it as something. So I'm gonna save that. I think this is technically, we'll call this. And I'm just gonna save it as lesson 5, part 1, but just save it as anything you want.
Okay.
And then as soon as you're done with that, we're gonna start a new part.
Alright.
And what you can do is you can leave this one open. I think I showed you guys how to close out of individual parts with this little X, like the small X instead of the big one, but do you know how to start a new file?
Oh, for parts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So you can just
Yeah.
click new and select part. And
Okay.
just let me know when you're ready to start making the second part.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
good.
So we're just going to start a new sketch. I'll do top plane again. And we're going to basically make like a half circle pretty much. So I'm just going to do a straight line. Then we're going to do a center point arc. To do that, I'm just going to click first on the midpoint of the line, then on one of the ends of the line, then on the other end.
What's the length of the line?
Good question. We're just going to set it to be an inch. And that's the whole sketch for that. And then once you're done with that, just extrude that to 3 inches as well.
Okay.
Like I said, hopefully these should be nice, easy parts. And then save that one as something as well. And once you have both of them saved as something, let me know. We can kind of get started on the actual assembly part.
Extrude it to 3 inches?
3
Okay.
inches. Yep.
Okay.
All right. And then let me know when you're ready to start doing the assembly stuff.
Okay, I'm all ready.
You all ready? All right, so we're gonna do new, and instead of clicking part though, we're gonna click on assembly,
Okay.
and you should get to a screen that looks like mine. I know you said your computer was a little slower, so just let me know when you have the screen popping up.
All right. All right.
Okay.
The screen's popped up.
And we're not going to do a crazy amount with assemblies, but just so you know, usually assemblies are where having a good computer starts to be important. So we're not going to do anything crazy. I'm going to limit it to just two-part assemblies, but in general, this is probably where you might see some bigger issues with obviously the patterns and stuff were pretty rough on your computer, I assume. Those be tricky.
Well, I'm gonna be, I think today's coming in a different computer that's
Oh, nice.
better than this.
Oh,
So,
fantastic. Yeah, usually assemblies are the almost
okay.
like the thing that'll cause your computer to crash, but that's only if you have really big ones. So we're going to be sticking to nice small ones.
Okay.
So you'll see this little begin assembly thing pops up, which is basically SolidWorks saying, let's toss some parts into our assembly. And you can see it automatically has the names of any files we have open right here under open documents. You don't have to, you're not limited to those though, right? If you click browse, it'll open up whatever your
Yeah.
folder was, and you can see whatever parts you have in there, which is super useful. But for us, we just want to use these two parts. So what we
Okay.
can do is, oh, sorry, are you saying something?
Oh, I just said all right.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's
So let's open part one for now. So you can just click on it, hit check, and you'll see our part pops in. Now to add our second part, we could have selected both in that screen, but you'll also see that there's an insert components feature up here that we can use. We'll use that to insert our second one. And that's what you're going to be using to assemble, start adding more parts to your assembly once you kind of have it started.
where's the ins oh, is it under assembly?
Yep, right up
Okay.
here under the assembly tab.
Okay.
And kind of like parts, when we were doing that, how you only needed like one or two tabs, it's pretty similar with assemblies where almost everything you'll need is going to be is in the assembly tab.
Oh.
And let's kind of mess around with a couple of features. So the first one that's kind of nice is move component. With that, you can basically just click on any component and you can move it around by with free drag, or you can do it in different ways. So if I do it by delta XYZ, what happens is if I put like say 5 inches in delta X, it'll move it 5 inches in the X direction. So you can do
Mhm.
stuff like that. If you do the little drop down under move component, you can also rotate things. And again, you can do that with free drag, or you can, do it by delta XYZ. Really, free drag and delta XYZ are the only ways I really use those features. So that's kind of useful just for getting your parts kind of together, because generally if they're kind of close together, it's a lot easier to work with them. Because occasionally if you'll
Mhm.
insert them, they'll get inserted really far away, which kind of stinks sometimes. So let's do our first mate. So there's a little paper clip up here that says mate, and it's going to pop up, and it works almost the same way as our relations did, right? And you
Oh,
see a lot of them are pretty similar, right? We have our tangent, we have perpendicular, we have parallel, we have coincident, we have concentric, right?
mm.
It's very, very similar, and it works almost the exact same way. So let's try doing something like this. Let's try making this little semicircle. Let's try to attach it to this top face up here, like where the flat piece here is attached to this flat piece. Any guesses on which mate type we'd want to use for that? We want this flat
So
piece.
the top where the hole would be, or
Nope, right on top
or
like
would it be tangent?
not
Not
quite.
sure.
It would be if you want something flat, kind of like touching a circle or something curved.
Yeah, that. Um. Okay.
Well,
Would it
what
be
we can
the?
do is, um, Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Would it be the coincidence?
Yep.
Don't think it wouldn't be perpendicular or parallel in this
Yeah.
case.
Well, if we did parallel, parallel would do something like this, right? Where it makes the two planes parallel, but not
Yeah.
necessarily touching, right? I could still move.
Yeah.
If I, here, I'll just kind of toss that in just so we can kind of see what that looks like. So if I did parallel, right?
Yeah.
Parallel, but I can still move it around wherever I want.
Mhm.
And you can see your mates in this little drop down. I'm going to delete that one because I didn't actually want that. So let's actually make them coincident. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's how we would do that. So coincident, there we go. And now that we've done that, so it looks like I was lifting it up and down, but if I do a straight on view, I can't lift it up and down. I can kind of move it. Oh, the planes are kind of always touching, but I can still move it, side by side, if that makes sense. So you can kind of see how I could still move it around, but those planes are always going to be touching. Any ideas on how I can kind of lock it down a bit further? Because you can see I could still move it around quite a bit.
Yeah. Would you, I don't know, crazy guess, use the lock feature here? I don't
So
know.
you
The
could
mate.
a lock. Locking, what that would do is basically if I lock, say, this and this together, it'll make it so they can only move together. Basically, it locks into place. I would recommend never using lock if you can help it, because it's not bad if you're just trying to hold something in place, but you kind of run into a lot of issues with it. So to fully define it, let's use other mates. So I'm going to try, so this little face of our half circle, I'll mate that with this face here, and I'll make those coincident as well, so they line up and they're nice and smooth like that. And if I hit check, you can see we're still in that little mate box. So then if I click this face here, and maybe my circle here, and you can see it automatically selects the mate type for me, like based on what it thinks I want. And I do want tangent here, right? Because I kind of want this flat face to be touching this spherical face. And if you look, it's like perfectly lined up now, right? And it's fully locked. If I try to drag it, it says it's fully defined, it cannot be moved. Does that make sense? Were you able to do those mates? I can kind of redo them if you stuck anywhere.
So just for the second one, it would be the half circle part and then the top.
Here, I'll get rid of
Right.
the two I just did and
Okay.
again for you. So
Yeah.
what we're gonna do, we're gonna mate this flat face and this flat face,
Okay.
the two flat faces of each shape, and we're gonna make those coincident as well. So what that does is now I can't move it forward or backwards, only this like side to side motion. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. And then to keep it from moving side to side, I'm gonna make this like the rounded face of our little half circle thing and the flat face here, and I'm gonna make those tangent so they're touching as well. And we can see we fully locked it down. Right? I try to move it, it says it's fully defined, it cannot be moved. Kind of like how with lines and points, and when you're doing sketches, once you fully define them, you can't move them around anymore.
Yeah.
Cool. Were you able to get those?
Yeah, I was able to get that.
Perfect. So let's insert some more components. So I'm going to insert another one of our second part, another one of our little half circle part. I'm adding another one. And let me know once you have that one added in as well.
Okay, it's added in.
Cool. So now let's try putting this one in the hole here. So I'm going to use mate. And how do you think we can get this like perfectly in the hole? Any ideas? Any ideas for a mate?
Concentric?
Yeah, perfect. If we select the circular edge of our like the circular face of our little half circle guy, and then the hole, it actually auto fills it as concentric. It thinks that's what we want, and it's right.
Huh.
And basically what that'll do is it'll take, because it'll basically see this as a half circle, and it'll basically take their center points and line them up. So it basically just makes it centered in it. So yeah, that's perfect. And then now to line up the flat face here with the flat face of our shape so it's not like poking out. You look at my screen, you can see how it's kind of poking out right now.
Yeah.
Any ideas on how we can make them flush?
Hmm.
Basically, we want those two faces
Sure.
to almost be like touching.
Yeah. Would it be the coincident?
Yep. Whenever you want two things to touch, coincidence usually going to be your answer. Yep. Cool. And I'm just going to close out of the mate box by hitting check once I'm done with that one. But the issue is, if you look at mine, I can still rotate it around, which kind of looks cool.
Oh yeah, it still says underdefined.
So it's still under defined, exactly. Yep. A lot of times when you're trying to fully define something, unless you're using lock, which 9 times out of 10 you shouldn't use, unless you're using lock, you're usually going to need 3 mates to fully lock something down. That's usually going to be your minimum. I'm sure there's exceptions to that. Yeah, I think there's exceptions to that, but usually you're going to need 3. So to keep this from rotating, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this plane here, this face, the flat face of our half circle inside the hole, and then the top face of my little cube guy. And I'm going to select them both with like shift click, same way we did the relations. And then I'm going to click mate. And again, we could have also done mate first and then selected our 2, just like our relations. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click perpendicular. And if you look, that's going to make these 2 faces perpendicular. We'll kind of see how that looks.
All right.
Once you finish that, it should be fully defined now. And I've pretty much shown you all the kind of like quote unquote easy mates to do. So we're going to try 1 or 2 slightly more complicated ones now. So first, let's add another one of our little half circle guys. And this one we're going to put in the hole as well, but I want it to stick out halfway, right?
Yeah.
But I want it to nestle in next to this one. So first let's get it in the hole and let's get it like kind of nestled up next to this guy. And then from there, we're going to kind of control how far out we want it to stick. So how should I put it in the hole? Any ideas? What mate should I use?
The concentric one like before.
Yep, concentric. Perfect. Okay, so I've done concentric. Oh, and if you look under concentric, there is an option to lock rotation. What that would do is it would make it so we wouldn't have had to add like that perpendicular thing like we did before, which can be nice if like, let's say you have a perfectly circular rod going into a perfectly circular hole, then you don't really have an edge to make perpendicular. So you can often just lock rotation if you want. Okay. So I put it in the hole, made it concentric. Now what? Any ideas on what we should do next? And if not, let me know because I can.
Maybe make it parallel. I'm
We
not sure.
could.
It was.
So I'm going to show you a slightly different cool trick. We absolutely could parallel, by the way. We absolutely could. We can make, we could do that. But I'm just going to show you a slightly different way to do it just because I want to show something to you. So if we select the face of the one we just added, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was sticking out a little bit. It was easy to select. And let's select the face of the one that we already put in there. So that one there. And right now you can see it's making them coincident. right? But that would just kind of, as it is now, it's placing it on top of this other one, right? We want it to be next to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we almost want to flip the one we added. Well, luckily for us, remember I was showing you like in like with like linear sketch patterns and like extrudes, there's often like those little arrows you can click to reverse the direction.
Yeah.
Same thing here. There's this little thing called mate alignment, which in this case, if I click it, you can see it actually flips it around and makes it coincident
Oh,
flipped, if that makes sense. So, and that is
yeah.
incredibly useful with mates because sometimes what will happen is just because of how a part's angled, it'll assume you want to attach it like the opposite way you want it. So you can just reverse your mate alignment and it fixes itself, right? So we'll swap our mate alignment and hit check. And look at that, perfectly lined up next to the other one. And it can still move in and out. And this is kind of what we're going to want to control next. Were you able to do the coincident with like the reversed alignment?
Yeah.
Perfect. So how do we want to get it to stick out of the hole? So this is where one more mate comes in. This one's a little bit fancier. So I'm going to select the face of our square and the face of the piece we added in. Just now that we want to stick out.
Okay.
And you can kind of see if we select both of them, it automatically makes it coincident. In this case,
Yeah.
that's not what we want, right? We don't want it to be lined up. We want it to stick out of it. So we're going to use this mate down here. This is called a distance mate. And essentially what it does is it basically you select two faces and you say, this is how far apart I want them to be, and it locks it down as that. Now remember our little half sphere guy, that was 3 inches. So to make it halfway stuck out, I'm going to put in 1.5 inches as the distance. And as you can see, now it's sticking out halfway. And what's kind of cool is I can also
Ooh.
flip the dimension here. So if I want it to stick out the other way, I can click flip dimension to kind of reverse
Uh,
that. That makes sense. And if you want, you can flip the dimension. You don't have to. It doesn't really make a difference for what we're doing. But yeah, and then once you do that, you can hit check. There we go. And now it's locked in place, but it's sticking out exactly how far we want it to. All right, you want to do one last thing?
sure.
And then after that, I think we'll probably be good. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add in another one of our square parts and another one of our half circle parts. So one of each. And just so you know, with the move component, you can just grab parts and move them around with your mouse. You don't have to select move component. The only time you need to select move component is if you want to do like move by delta XYZ or something like that. Let me know once you have those parts added in.
Okay, they're added in.
Perfect. So what I want to do is I want to make our two cubes kind of like perfectly side by side. So let's kind of get working on that. Any ideas on how I can make these guys perfectly side by side, my two square pieces?
Mm.
I want them like touching and kind of perfectly lined up next to each other.
Would you do the coincident one or whatever?
Yep, sure. Which
No.
faces should I do first?
Um, you do one of um the side faces, I'd say,
Perfect. And
on
then
each.
on each. Perfect. Okay, made those coincident. Nice. So I'm gonna hit check. All right, next coincident mate. What should I do next? Any ideas on what I should do next?
That's weird.
Something
So
not
I
working for
clicked the two faces
you? Uh-huh.
and it didn't move. Like one of the squares just rotated. One of
Is it like touching and is it kind of lined up the way you were thinking, or is it weird?
they're not touching, but they're lined up.
Oh, I see. So what happens with coincident is the two sides won't necessarily touch. So imagine the two sides as like planes that go on infinitely as like a flat surface.
Oh, okay.
Essentially what it does is it makes those two infinite planes touch. The parts themselves might not necessarily touch though.
Okay.
But they're kind of like lined up next to each other like that.
Mm,
Yeah, in that case you should be good. So we just need to add a couple more mates to yeah, so now we just need to actually line them up the rest of the way. So let me know if you have any ideas for what we want the next mate to be.
mm,
And if not, just let me know and I can kind of explain it to you, but just to kind of give you a chance for practice.
mm. Wow. So would we get them touching here?
Yeah, yep, that's the
Okay.
goal.
Okay. So would you make the top two faces coincident?
Yeah, that would work perfectly. Yeah, let's do that. Make the top two faces coincident. Yeah, that looks good on my part. I think we just need one more. If
Hmm.
you kind of look at what I have, you can kind of see what I have left to do. Yours might look different though, but which is totally fine.
Yeah.
So we just need one more mate, I think.
Mine looks like it's on the side with that we put our little half cylinder at, but it's really hard to tell right now.
Oh, is it going like over the half
Oh
cylinder?
wait, no, it's not. It was just the angle I was at.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes. Yep. Yeah, so what are you thinking for the last mate?
Hmm.
One thing that can help, kind of like with the relations and the dimensioning, the part
Yeah.
that isn't fully defined, just try dragging it and moving it around and see what direction it's still moving in. And that'll kind of give you an idea of what you still need to make kind of like locked in. Especially if like kind of by hand you try to like line it up where you want it to be, you can kind of get an idea of what you need to do to really lock it in. I know that's what I do whenever I have like underdefined sketches. Whatever line underdefined, I just drag it around to try to figure out what I need to do still. Yeah, and if you're stuck on it, I could always just give
I
you.
can,
But
I'm gonna try to think real quick.
yeah, and one thing you could try doing is just open mate and try selecting faces that you think might work. You could always kind of trial and error,
Yeah.
of course, because I showed you how you can go into mates and delete them. The other thing is it also usually preview it before you have to hit check. So just select two faces and see if it does what you're kind of hoping it to do. And
Um,
do a little bit of trial and error.
yeah. Okay. So would it be the two faces that will be side by side and make them coincident?
Oh, kind of like the two front faces, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Worked for me. Yeah, mine works.
I got that. That didn't work.
Didn't work
I
for
got,
you?
yeah. Let me
Okay.
see. Let me see where I can move it. Uh, Oh wait, that did work. It just says underdefined because of the other part.
Oh, the one that we haven't done anything yet for?
Yeah, because I'm
Got
not able to move it now.
it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. So here's what we're going to do with this last cylinder. We're going to put it in the hole of the new square we just added in. So we'll do our concentric trick like we did last time. And this time, instead of having it stick out, I'm going to have it be perfectly flush. So we'll also make those little flat faces coincident. And let me know once you have that. So basically you should have it in the hole. It should be flush, but it should still be able to kind of like spin around. That's kind of what we're trying to get to right now. I did it super quick, but if you need me to kind of back it up and show you the steps, I'm absolutely happy to do that.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
Perfect. So to stop it from spinning now, what I kind of want to do, instead of having it be like, perfectly horizontal or vertical, I kind of want it at like a nice 45-degree angle. Kind of like how I have it set up on my screen right now, if you look.
Mm.
Because I kind of want to do something like that, right? I want to angle it.
Mm.
And this is going to be the last of the kind of quote unquote basic mates that we can do. So if we open up our mate menu, I'm going to select the kind of like the last flat, like the inner flat face of our half circle, the long one,
Yeah.
that one. And then I'm going to select, from here, it doesn't matter too much which face I select, but I'll select the bottom face of our square.
Okay.
And you can see it automatically for me defaults to parallel. That's what it thinks I want. Instead, though, I'm going to go down to this angle relation right here. And I'm going to put in 45 degrees. And that'll make this face a perfect 45-degree angle with this face. And kind of like the distance, I can flip that dimension to kind of alter the orientation of it. I could also flip the alignment if I wanted to also alter the orientation. And you can kind of mess around with that to get it to look how you want. But I'm going to leave it as default. You can mess around with flipping the dimension and the alignment to make it something you like more, but I'm just going to stick to the basic one. But obviously you're free to do whatever you want. And once I have that, I'm going to hit the check mark and close up to this. And now it's fully defined as well. Were you able to get the angle mate to work?
Yeah.
Perfect. So those were all of the basic mates. We did at least one of every single one of these, except for lock, but I don't like using lock. Basically what lock would do, I'll insert one just to show you what it looks like, but I'm not going to actually do it because I don't like it. So you don't have to follow along with this. I'm just kind of showing you what it does. So if I mate that to say this and I do lock, it just automatically makes it so it can't move in relation to this. So say this part could still move, then if I moved this part would move with it. But since this one's locked, this one's locked. And I'm not a big fan of it because what ends up happening is if you make any changes to either of these, it really messes with that lock mate. And the other thing is generally the big point of SolidWorks is to try to design something precise, It's like whether that be you need two pieces that touch perfectly or two pieces that are centered perfectly, or maybe two pieces that are some distance apart, or maybe they're parallel or some angle or whatever. That's kind of the point of SolidWorks to design those kinds of parts. So using lock doesn't make a ton of sense in those regards because you know, you're not really assigning any dimensions or anything. I'm sure there are definitely times where it's useful, but I've never had to use it before. So ultimately all lock does though is basically just lock something to something else. You can almost imagine like you're freezing it in place with regards to something else. So, you know,
Oh,
if you move that other part, then sure your part can move, but otherwise it's locked. So that's what lock does. It's not that I don't like it. I've just never seen a situation where I thought it was useful. So I'm going to save my assembly. And one thing to keep in mind when you're working with assemblies, if you change one of your parts, it automatically updates in the assembly. Although if you look up here,
oh,
there's this little like stoplight symbol called rebuild. If it doesn't update automatically, you can click that. It'll almost like refresh everything and kind of rebuild it.
oh,
Do what it sounds like. A couple other things. Sometimes like see how we made like a mate between this face of our half circle and this face up here. Remember how we were kind of mating faces to things?
yeah.
What would happen is if we had like done something in the part to delete that face, it would give us a bunch of error messages. It's like once we went back to the assembly, it would freak out. It'd be like, oh my goodness,
Oh,
can't find the face you were using. So when that happens, you have a couple options. Either one, if you go into it, you can basically pick a different face to substitute, or you could just delete the mate. Deleting mates is easy, just click on it and you can delete it. But what we'll do is we'll mess around with some slightly fancier mates in the next lesson. We'll also talk about something called exploded view. And I'll try to make it like a more like this. We didn't really make anything. This was very much just a demo, like kind of workshop thing. But
yeah.
I'll try to make a couple parts before the next lesson that we can assemble to make it like an actual thing, like, something that's a bit more applicable than, whatever this is. So I'm not sure what I'll make yet. Maybe I'll like, you have to like assemble a little boat or I don't know, but I'll figure out something that we can do some assembly stuff on. It'll be fun. But yeah, that's all I had for today. So
Okay.
stop the recording.